Welcome to The Derivative by RCM Alternatives. Send it. Hello there. All right, everyone. Welcome back to The Derivative, brought to you by RCM Alternatives. As hinted at, or maybe I should say threatened, we're doing a bit of a Chicago month here in June with guests doing financial-ish stuff in and around Chicago or with a Chicago firm or exchange. First up, Tommy Choi, a friend of a friend I've had the pleasure of debating best burger in Chicago with a few times. He also happens to do real estate in Chicago, a lot of it, like $2 billion of it. So thought would be good to have him on. I always thought people were leaving Chicago because of taxes and cold weather, but Tommy sets me straight. Send it. All right, everybody. We're here with Tommy Choi. Tommy, how are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on here.
I appreciate you coming on. Tommy and I are friends of friends, but we've hung out a couple times and pretty nice circumstances. One was a 50th birthday party in a kind of rented out part of a steak restaurant, and one was on a boat.
Yeah, I was telling our friend Dan, I'm like, you got to get that boat again every year because you know who doesn't like a huge private yacht catered by RPM and hang out, on a nice summer Chicago day.
Yeah, just keep paying that bill. So I got to start the hat. I love it. Look, I'm getting Coca-Cola vibes, which I'm drinking. I ran to McDonald's, got my standard Diet Coke before we started.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate that. You know what? So I have this thing where I obsess over classic, iconic brands. And obviously Coca-Cola is one of the most classic brands and companies, especially in pop culture too. And I always think, okay, when we make our team corporate swag, Weinberg Choi, my real estate company, I'm always like, I would not want to rock this stuff if I wasn't the co-founder of the company. Because I don't want to be a billboard for someone else's brand. So I said, let's start making swag based on other people's logos. And I had this dream one day that I would have this wall just filled with cease and desist letters from companies like Coca-Cola, which is wishful thinking. Like they care about this, little real estate company in Chicago that we're making these hats based on their logo. But anyhow, every year we make these. We make about 150. Sometimes we do 200, and we give them out to past clients, just supporters. And what's cool is I always get people, especially in the summertime, when it's street festivals and people are out and about, take pictures in the wild, being like, "Oh, I just saw a Weinberg Choi hat out there." So this is one of our favorite ones, the Coca-Cola one.
All right, I'm putting my name in for a.
I've got you. I'm gonna give you a whole slew of these cool ones. So
I have the same dream. We've done a bunch of Star Wars infographics around investment themes. And I'm waiting for them to be like, hey, cease and desist. You can't use our characters talking about managed futures. But
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say John Lucas probably doesn't care, but it's not even him. He's sold. It's all Disney now, right?
Yeah.
So
George Lucas. But
George Lucas, not John Lucas. John Lucas is, the basketball coach. George Lucas, yeah.
So got you here we're doing a little Chicago month on the pod. You're selling basically Chicago day in, day out, right?
Yeah.
In your job. So let's start big picture of like what makes Chicago great. What are your easy parts selling it and what are the hard parts selling it?
I'll tell you what, Chicago, and I'm a lifelong Chicagoan. My family immigrated here in the mid-'70s to the north side of the city, which is now considered North Center. My mom has had a dry cleaner, she's retired now for about 35 years in Boys Town. So that north side, and I live in the Southport corridor now. So, that Lakeview north side neighborhood has always been home to me. And what I love about Chicago, I think the easy sell is culturally, you look at the food scene. I think we're one of the best food cities in the entire world, from the beef stands, the hot dog stands, right? What they call like the working class like spots, which I love, to the Michelin star fine dining. We're pushing the culinary scene. We have such a mix of diversity that brings all the different ethnicities and cultural cuisines to the city. Um, I think the biggest sleeper that a lot of clients, when we're helping them relocate to the city, that they don't realize is how much beachfront real estate we have. And the amount of beaches, going from the city all the way up even to the North Shore, being by a body, a lake like Lake Michigan. I have times where I bring people and they see the lake and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't see the other side of it. I'm
Yeah,
like,
they're like,
yes, this
"This
is
is
the
a
largest
lake?"
body of water. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
like, and we got 5 of them. So, I think those things make it incredible. And as much as people don't like the winters, I think that's one of the greatest things of Chicago, because when it comes this time of year and the city thaws out and the sun is out, everyone embraces being out in the city. It's hard for me to travel during the summertime because I don't want to leave. This is the best time of year. So I think that's the plus side of why Chicago. And then I can get into the affordability piece,
yeah.
right? For
Like,
being one of the largest populated cities, it's such an affordable city.
um, to me, New York is way more intertwined with the water, right? You're either
Yes.
going in a tunnel under it or bridge over it.
Right.
But you're in New York, you hardly ever see the water. I mean, you could be up in a big tower, but like the day to day, or when I'm visiting, you get on the
Right.
island, you're like, "Where's the water?" So yeah,
Right.
that is a weird thing.
And you're looking at like, the Hudson River. It's like, okay, it's not
Yeah,
like the,
yeah.
the prettiest thing in the world, right? But
What,
and that's the other piece. And this is my doomsday scenario of why I also think Chicago real estate is so valuable. You know, we're not by the east or west coast where we're dealing with erosion, or even like, Florida, where they have like hurricanes going on. I feel like my doomsday scenario is like Chicago's pretty natural disaster free.
yeah.
And I just think more people are going to start heading towards the middle of the country, and we'll be sitting on prime investments.
I always tell people that. I'm like, I love it because there's no natural disasters, just political pension ones,
Yeah,
which we'll
exactly.
get into next. But like, yeah, but no mudslides, no. I mean, in theory, downtown you could get a tornado. It's not
Right.
really ever happened. Um, Totally agree with you. And my last piece, you should work in your bit of, especially compared with New York. I'm like, we have alleys, we hide our
Yes,
trash.
exactly.
New
The
York
grid
kills me. There's a
system. Yeah.
$80 million condo up there, and they have to walk out of their building next to all the trash bags lined up. I'm like, what's
It's
happening?
so true. Alleys are a key to have, and even like when you go into like Texas, southern, some parts of the country that have like limestone, in their ground, they can't even dig out basements. They literally have to
Yeah.
blast through the ground. And I think things like that just make it very. And I also feel like I always felt the Chicago brick bungalow is such an iconic piece of real estate that's so unique to our city, that is just it was a way of affordability, and so many people built generational wealth, through that product, and it's one that still you see, and I hope to, that we can secretly protect those bungalows and keep
What
away from developers knocking them down.
do you know the history of that? Was there like many developers that did that, or was it just that was the style everyone copied?
No, it was a style that was copied, but it was gosh, it was, I can't remember which war it was, probably World War II. Afterwards, the developers were starting to build that style of bungalow in the north side of the city, and it just took off. And I think part of it was also at the time, back then, families were, I think, smaller. They didn't have all the crap that we have today, and the need for walk-in closets and ensuite bathrooms obviously weren't a thing. So I feel like that was just an affordable piece of real estate that was all brick. And back then you can build the way that, you can't build like that today, without charging an arm and a leg for it. So it just was a solution that filled a void that people needed back then. And it's cool to see those still stick around, today.
And it's like a little west of where we live. right, you start driving past, and you could go blocks and blocks and blocks
Oh my
just
gosh.
passing home after home. So there's probably still a million plus of those hanging
Yeah,
around the city.
there's a ton. You just see them more so, I think, on the northwest side, of the city. You see some in the south sides, a little bit west sides too, but you know, kind of when you approach the city center, unfortunately, the price of real estate has taken a toll on a lot of those. But I still love a good bungalow.
And not but the classic Chicago line is what do they call it? Shotgun house.
Shotgun style, yep. Shotgun, that 25 by 125, bowling alley, um, piece of real estate that we have
Is,
to
is that
build.
is that more narrow than New York, say, or some other cities?
You know
Or
what?
is it
I
just
think I would say it's probably more narrow than even when you look at like, the burbs of how, there's obviously not like a standard lot size out in the burbs. But, you know, I think it's pretty predominant to denser cities where I see that in Boston. I see that in
mm.
DC, where you can kind of touch your neighbor. But it's definitely, the standard in the city.
And that was you would open the front door, shoot a shotgun, it would go all the way through? Where'd that come from?
That is beyond my pay grade. I don't even I don't
Yeah.
even know the full, but that's the story I've heard growing up. I don't know if that's an actual an event that occurred and whatnot that took off, but yeah.
And so what are the negatives? What are you selling against with Chicago?
I would say right now, of late, since the pandemic, the hardest, sale or objection I come across when people are coming to the city is what they see and read in the headlines. And a lot of it has to do with crime, it has to do with this, the stretch we had when Michigan Avenue, was dealing with a lot of the smash and grabs and things like that. So
Yeah.
I think that obviously in 2026, especially with, everyone having access to news at the fingertips of their, from their phones and whatnot. I think also politically things have become very sensitive and divided when it comes you know, to Chicago as well. So those are really the things, and it comes down to like, educating people. I always tell people that, yeah, I mean, any major city is dealing with that, especially post pandemic. But I feel like it's a lot of sensationalized headlines, or a lot of times people don't read past the headlines and they don't get a glimpse of, you know, at what kind of volume this is happening, geographically, where is this happening and whatnot. I have three young daughters that I've raised in the city and continue to be committed to raising them in the city. And so I think that it comes down to just an education, around that. But, like I said, and what I mean by the political side of things is you start to see a lot of things that maybe are a little bit more progressive compared to how things were a little bit more, in the center, maybe left of center, historically speaking, in Chicago. When you see, property taxes going up, you're seeing things like, transfer tax being proposed in the past, being increased on higher priced homes. So things like that definitely people become more sensitive to those headlines, and they start to balk a little bit at whether they want to be in the city or maybe they want to exit the city and go into the burbs. But it's a lot of, and I think that's why there's such an importance to be working with a professional, a real estate agent who understands and that also lives in the community, so they can really tell you boots on the ground on how things really are, and what the climate and the market really share compared to what they're hearing and reading online or in their little echo chamber on Twitter, right?
Yeah. And I was proud of you. You mentioned tax third. You'd think tax would be the number one thing. But
you, you know, Go ahead.
I was going to say, we were just down in Puerto Rico at a conference, and
Hmm.
people were basically trying to convince you to move there and only pay 6% tax. But like within an afternoon, they're like, this was the best bar in San Juan, the best restaurant in the San Juan, the best three things, like within an hour and a half. I'm like, now what? We just did
No,
it all in 90 minutes.
right.
So I was like, I'd rather pay and have all the good stuff than save this money on tax. So I don't know. That's an unpopular opinion, but I think down deep, a lot of people feel that way. I'm like, hey, I can go to the beach. I can walk to see my kid play softball to
Yeah,
the park next door. And then I can go downtown and see a Broadway show and take in a nice meal. So, yeah, you're,
absolutely. Absolutely. The amenities, that's what I think a lot of people tie property taxes to, like, well, what am I getting? Okay, so what are like a lot of times they think about school.
yeah,
And they and that's the thing, right? Chicago is a very competitive market when it comes to schools and how to navigate that. But I always say, look beyond that. Look at what you just mentioned, right? The amenities that the city provides and what that lifestyle is. You're either live a lifestyle that's conducive to what the city offers, or you don't. And if you don't, it's simple. It's okay. Then move to a
yeah.
different place that offers that, right?
And so that's a good segue into what are you seeing? Has there been this big move, especially of wealth, out of it, right? Ken Griffin famously.
Yeah.
So a lot of big money was saying, enough of this. I can't handle this tax burden. I'm out. What are you seeing on that higher end, especially of like, is it net out or is it roughly the same?
Good question. I feel like we're almost at like a net zero. It seemed like, I think during the pandemic, it felt and seemed like there was this mass exodus. And I will tell you, it depended on geographic where you were. The more like or near the near north, like River North, Gold Coast, Streeterville, they definitely saw more people migrating out. A lot of those people, though, were, um, you know, uh, winter birds, right? People that
Yeah.
had a place in the city that was more of a pied a terre, that they'd come in, during the summertime, but they wintered in, in Florida, for half the year. Those are the people that really, the majority that decide to exit out because they're just like, you know what, we're going to just stick around here full time in Florida.
And they were closest to that crime smash and grab stuff as well.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then you saw a younger group, that younger workforce that was like, "Oh wow, I can be remote now. I'll go to the mountains. I'll do the beaches. I'll do Southern California." And they just took off, but it was more of a temporary takeoff because when we started to see um, downtown in the Loop start to get back in a hybrid in person, we saw that younger professional group come back to Chicago in the form of being a tenant or in the form of repurchasing, a one bed, two bed condo in the city. So that definitely came back. And I'd say those collar neighborhoods around the Loop and the financial district are definitely a little bit more contingent upon what that in-person workforce looks like. Because that's the whole draw of being in the South Loop or the West Loop or Fulton Market. Sure, outside of neighborhood amenities, it's having a short commute to work. And
Yeah.
so that equation was taken out, or that was taken out of the equation, 2020, 21, 22. We started to see that come back now, and those markets are starting to thrive and get better. I'll tell you, right, we measure inventory in this nerdy term called month supply. And so at one point, the near north, River North, Gold Coast, and Streeterville in 2021-ish had 18 months of supply. So for anyone listening that's like, what is this nerd talking about? Let's say nothing new came on the market. That means at that point, it would take 18 months to sell out those neighborhoods, right? Absorption rate. Um,
Yeah.
and to give some context, typically around 5 months of supply is when you start to see a balanced market. So anything under 5 months is a seller's market. So 18 months was a
A
very,
lot.
a lot. That was more than during the last market crash in 2010. And so today we're at about 5 months supply in that market. So it's come back a lot. Now, when you look at the north side of the city, Lincoln Park, Lakeview, we're at about 4 weeks of supply right now. So it's still very, very competitive and very much so a seller's market. But those people exited out. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people from that, let's just say River North neighborhood during that 2020, 2021 period, they migrated out of River North, but went into single family home because they wanted more space in
Yeah.
a Bucktown, Westtown,
Right. I'm
Wicker
going to be working
Park.
from home. I need more space.
Exactly. So it was a lot of just transferring around within the city. But, like I said, today we're seeing a lot of people that still want to go out to the burbs because they want to be closer to family. Not so much of like people like wanting to, I'm done with city life, right? It's just a matter of being closer to
Yeah.
family, or it's
Because
people
they can't
leaving for
afford
job relocation.
yeah,
Yeah,
they can't afford
exactly.
the childcare. They need to get closer to families. Like, I need free childcare.
Totally, totally. And that's part of also right now, I think when we look at inventory, I think Illinois, I actually just I just did a interview with Pritzker, the governor, and we were talking about this. Um, because he's introduced this whole bill, he calls it build plan, and how he's going to create more inventory. Illinois is short about 150,000 homes right now. And you look at Chicago, you know,
What
that
does that
single
mean, real quick? Of like, how do they calculate that? So there's 150,000 people looking for homes, and there's not available.
Yeah, it's based on the supply and demand of what the absorption rate looks like.
Okay, that's
And
still
right
some
now,
formula, but yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I'll tell you what, we were coming out of that last recession. We were already behind, nationally as a country, of new home starts, and we never caught up to that. And then the pandemic really widened that gap, right now as well. But I think part of the issue is, you know, right now the largest group are the baby boomers right now that they're holding on to the largest amount of real estate.
Yeah.
And part of it is that, you know, they have, they need to downsize, but a lot of their wealth is tied into that real estate that they've owned for 40, 50 years. A lot of them I have conversations with, and they're just like, hey, with where things have appreciated, I actually, this is my 401k. This is
Mm.
the equity I have, and I don't want to get hit with capital gains because I know this is appreciated more than, $500,000. And also, the argument is now where do I go and what am I going to buy?
Yeah,
And so
great. I
there's
sold it at
this
a high price. I have to buy something else at a high price.
totally, and there's this bottleneck, and right now, I think we the prime someone I don't know someone in Washington D.C. came up with this, right? The prime household age is 36 of when you're primed to purchase a home, and next year we're going to see the largest amount of 36-year-olds our country's ever seen,
Really?
population wise. So we're going to see
Huh.
another influx of demand that's coming in, and so you see that gap of supply and demand, and you see it in the data. Last year, nationally, the first time homeowner age was 40 years old. It's the oldest that it's ever been since they've started recording and
Yeah,
collecting
the
that data.
millennials are like, I don't need to own a home, blah.
Right, and part of
But
it
you
that's
think it's just getting pushed back?
yeah, it's mainly because there's just no like inventory that's out there for people to purchase, so it's getting pushed back further and further. A lot of people will say it's affordability. There's a little bit of that, but it's more so what I'm finding being out there. And listen, our team sold over $1 billion in real estate. We've helped 2,000 clients over the last 2 decades, so we've had a lot of at bats. And these conversations I have are twofold. One, when you look at the younger millennial, the late 20, early 30s, those kids are making more money than we did at that age, right? So they
Yeah.
definitely have the income
Speak for
around it.
yourself, Tony. Kidding.
Exactly. I mean,
I'm
Jeff,
kidding.
I mean,
Yeah.
you you
Yeah. Yeah.
you definitely were, top 1% early. So part of it is they don't look at buying and owning real estate the way that maybe you and I did, or definitely not how our parents did. As the whole idea of like, well, if you paying rent, you're throwing money away, you're not
Right.
building equity. They get that. They don't care. They look at buying a piece of real estate as like that now ties me down to Chicago and now I lose my flexibility. What if I want to be in Boulder for a year or, Southern California or Seattle or whatever? They think that real estate erases their freedom. And then when you look at the equity piece of things and real estate as a vehicle of building generational wealth, they don't buy into that because they're more into crypto now, right? They're just
Right.
like, oh, no, I mean, Bitcoin will do that for me. I don't need to, I'm fine paying rent, to
Yeah.
have
This
that
is just one of my
flexibility.
expenses. I don't view it as an investment.
Totally. So that
Which I
culturally, it's very interesting how that that's flipped. And I think part of that's also pushing that first time home buyer age up as well. The other part when it comes to affordability, it's not so much being able to afford to purchase to afford a mortgage. It's really the entry point. Now because it's become so competitive, more people are writing cash offers. I literally have this conversation every weekend when I'm reviewing offers. I'm like, where is all this cash coming from? Where do these 36-year-olds coming up with $2 million in cash to purchase this single family home, right? It's probably bank
baby
of mom
boomer
and dad.
dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Who had
exactly
like
what it is.
12 million in Nvidia earnings, and they're like, okay, sure, I'll carve a little bit out.
Totally. So
Yeah.
part of that is why that first time home buyer age is going up is that right someone that doesn't have bank of mom and dad, they have to and they just have just right 20% down. They did it how they were taught. They're just not competitive right now enough
Mm.
in this market.
And so mortgage rates have been stubbornly high for what, since 22 is when they
So yeah,
peaked?
it was Mother's Day 22 when they started to, right? And then it was 2023 when I think the highest it hit that I saw was 8% at one point.
So in your experience, I've always thought the people they don't really care about the mortgage rate or the price of the house. They just want that payment,
Yeah.
right? So like, I don't care which lever has to go up and down. I just want to pay $4,000 a month or whatever the number is. So
Well,
do you see that in your lived experience of like, that's how the metric works?
no, unfortunately not. I wish more people were more financially astute like you that looked at it like that. Unfortunately, people and now we're in a place in 2026 where it's become more normalized and people understand, okay, rates aren't, unless there's another global pandemic, we're not going to see rates in the 2s and 3s again. But
Well, careful what you
initially,
wish for. We've got Ebola's out I saw
right,
on the news this morning, and the
hantavirus, right?
hantavirus.
Might be time to refi, Jeff,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. There's a lot of, when it comes to real estate, there's tons of FOMO that hits and no one wants to be that buyer to say like, gosh, I missed out on the lowest rates in the US history up in this point. Right. And so when those rates start to hit 7%, close to 8%, there's a lot of people that exited out of that market because purely on FOMO. They're like, this is wild, right? And we try and educate like, hey, it's wild when you look at, yeah, you could have had a 3% rate, but you were not looking. You weren't in the market at that
Yeah.
time.
Like, what were you
Look
gonna do?
at your monthly nut. What is your carrying cost? Can you afford it? That's all that really matters. Rates
Matters.
will fluctuate. You'll have an opportunity to refinance if they drop again. So don't really think about it. Everyone tries to time things out. And we always tell people time in the market is better than timing the market. It's better to just be in it today when you can afford it. This is a good rate, relatively speaking, versus trying to time everything when the rates go down. Because when rates go down, that means more buyer demand and competition go up, which
Uh,
means home
you
prices
might not
drive
get it
up.
anyway. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So,
And what are you
so
seeing that?
thankfully we're past that.
But have you also seen where people are locked in at that 3% mortgage and like, hell no, I'm not selling because like that was the best deal I ever made. I don't
Yeah,
care if the roof's falling in or whatever. Like, I'm holding this house.
that's part of it. That's part of also why we have this lack of supply is that those buyers that were buying that have this 2%, 3% rate, they've dug this moat around their home, and they're just like, right? I have cheap debt. I never want to sell this property. And there's times, I'll be honest with you, right? I look at myself as an advisor, and as a good advisor, my first question when I meet with someone who wants to sell is, do you need to use this equity? Do you need to sell in order to buy? If their answer is no, I tell them, keep this property, rent it out, unless you don't
Yeah.
want to be a landlord. We can mitigate that by hiring a property manager, but you have cheap debt. You might as well keep
Yeah, that's
this,
the best thing you can get.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but a lot of the times what I find in those conversations, people, even if they don't need it, they just don't want to be a landlord. They're just like, I bought this to be my primary. I get it. I'm good to sell it and, make some good money on the appreciation, and I'll walk away from that 3%, mortgage rate.
And what's your view on that in Chicago and elsewhere of like, I think a friend of mine in New York's paying like $6,000 a month for some 1.5 bedroom-ish thing. Like rents seem like they've just gotten out of control. So part of that must be this dynamic you're saying, like nobody wants to really buy a house, so push up the rents. But is that sustainable? And
Rents.
do you see people getting pushed into buying because of that?
Here's the thing. We try and educate, on our side, we represent a lot of landlords. And you're right. I've never seen a rental market this competitive in the last 2 decades. I'll give you an example. There was in West Town, a 2-bed, 2-bath that my teammate Katya, who's our leasing specialist, she had marketed for 3,800 a month in rent. She ended up getting 25 applications,
Wow.
and the winning tenant, they bid up to 4,500 a month. We tried like talking to them and saying, "Hey, have you ever like looked at getting pre-approved?
Yeah.
$4,500 a month is pretty significant money. You can borrow 30-year fixed, mortgage." But once again, they were a young professional, and they were like, no, 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 we're not tied to Chicago. Like we get that, but we're okay paying this. We can afford it. And we like the flexibility of, knowing that in a year from now, we can go somewhere else. So once again, it's this mindset piece around it. They understand. Yeah, I know I can afford buying, but I don't want to.
We just did a podcast a little while ago with a former Major League Baseball pitcher talking through the path dependency of like, but even these young athletes, I'm making $7 million a year. I could spend a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, but you ain't only been making that for 3 years,
Right.
right? Like it's better if you have this long term. So a lot of those people might be thinking like, I can afford this, but over 30 years, can you afford it? Right? Like multiply that out.
Exactly.
It's just going to keep going up, whereas your mortgage will be locked in
Exactly.
there.
Exactly.
We're a couple old men screaming at this guy. Hey, come on, buy. And then just as we're talking about rentals, what's your take on converting, right? It's happened more in New York. It's starting to come to Chicago, converting old financial buildings and office buildings into residential. Seems to me
I,
I wouldn't want to live down there on LaSalle Street, but maybe somebody
no,
does.
you know what? That's I remember during the pandemic, it was Lightfoot, Lori Lightfoot. She was making a big push about converting a lot of that office space that's people were vacating because people were working virtual. And I'm like, there's an inventory issue, but also I always reframe it. There's tons of inventory in Chicago. What there's a lack of is what we call desirable inventory.
Yeah.
And so part of that is also, I think, as an elected official, and this is what we always try and, lobby for is, hey, how do you make that undesirable inventory desirable? And a lot of that has to revolve around commercial corridors, right? If you bring more commercial retail into a neighborhood, it boosts the desirability. And so the Loop to me is a very undesirable place to live because there's just no real amenities. There's not much commercial quarter. There's sure great food halls. There are restaurants, but they're all, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., right?
Yeah.
Nothing really is open and conducive to the evening lifestyle. So I'm not a big fan of converting, that kind of real estate that's in an undesirable inventory in my eyes. Now, I think there's a great opportunity where you can convert some of that commercial office space into hotel. We definitely need more of that event space, more reason for tourism to come.
Yeah.
But for residential living, I think it's tough. That the other part of this too, Jeff, is that you know there's a point after that 2010 to 12 stretch where, the financial and housing market just completely crashed. Um, that a lot of developers, you started to see less cranes in the skyline that were being built for condos. The development that you saw were luxury, what we call Class A luxury apartment buildings. And part of that became more developers looked at that rental market as a more desirable product filling a void. And it was also a better exit, right? Where, the occupancy rate in Chicago back then was around like 91, 92%. Now it's like 96%. You build a building for 30, $40 million, you fill it to 92, 93% capacity at Class A rent, which is, the highest rental rates. You have a property manager that's running that, 5, 6 years later, you know, some PE company knocks on your door and says like, hey, would you
Hey,
take
we like
300,
this
300,
cash
300
stream. Yeah.
mil? Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a pretty great return. Why would I build condos and deal with, building them out in phases, but, having to pay the bank back at certain phases. So we started to see more people do that. The problem now is a lot of the times people pitched it as like, oh yeah, and then if there's a need for condos again, someone will come and convert these, apartments just like they did back in the 90s into condos. The challenge is, I always said this, and it's come to fruition today, is that the way that these apartments were built, the footprints are way too small because they packed in as many doors as they can. So
Yeah.
you start to see these one bedrooms that are being rented out for, like $2,500. That's, 700 square feet, 600 square feet. That's not a condo product I think someone's going to be paying $400,000 for. Right. So you can't undo that. So I think, and like I said, rent is such at an all-time high right now. The business model doesn't support converting any of these. So, I don't even know really if there's much room for conversion outside of really the Loop. And like I said, I don't think that's a really desirable product or area to, even convert.
My other condo problem is this happened to us, Royalton Towers. You know that building? We
Oh
lived in
yeah.
that for a
Oh yeah.
while on Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Over 8 years when we lived there, basically the price of owning it increased like 70%, right? The electricity, all that, but I'm forgetting what you call it, like your monthly whatever
The
to pay for the
HOA,
doorman.
yeah, the assessments.
The HOA went up from like $200 to $900
Yeah.
a month. Yeah. So then when we went to sell it, people are doing the math. Like basically we sold it for the same thing over 8 years that we bought it for. But dude, the buyer's
Yeah.
like, well, it's 8 times more expensive than on a monthly basis than it was back then.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know what I
And my,
miss is the horse stable. That's gone. That used
I
to be
know.
there down the
Yeah.
street.
Might have been an insurance fire.
Yeah.
Right? Wasn't there a fire?
Yeah, it was a fire.
And then the realtor who sold us that place gave your profession a bad name because she's like, oh, see everything under the L. They're going to redo the L, and this is all going to be a dog park. And then, like, she was just making stuff up.
Oh yeah,
And I was
totally.
like, that sounds lovely. My second condo question is, what do you do with all these 1960s buildings? Like how, right, we saw in Miami, some of these condos started to fall down and fall apart. When
Yeah.
and if that comes to Chicago, like what do you do with all these really old buildings that have right? Some little old lady's not going to leave there. So you can't buy out all the tenants.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a very a good point that you brought up because we're actually seeing a lot because and with that that was in Surfside, Miami, the building that collapsed that had the structural issues. Because of that, Fannie and Freddie, who they're the majority of the mortgages that are in the country, they're the ones that are underwriting all these. They have now, because of that, added into what they call a 22.1 disclosure, aka a condo questionnaire, that
Hmm.
every loan Fannie and Freddie does, the underwriters have to send this to the property management company or the HOA contact that fills out basically the health of that HOA, right? And it's contingent upon them approving a loan to borrow into a building. And what they added ever since that tragedy in Miami that happened is the structural integrity questions, right? Asking about when's the last time a structural engineer came out? When's the last time you did any sort of facade work? Things like that. And a lot of these buildings have not done it. And so
Never? Where's
you're starting to see a wave now of special assessments hitting a lot of these older condo buildings because they are having to do a lot of this deferred maintenance work, and even buildings that have been pretty on top of it. uh they're having to do more updated work to just stay compliant, because you know some of these buildings that don't pass that questionnaire that Fannie and Freddie want, they deem them unwarrantable, and you cannot get conventional loan in the building. We come across that a lot, and so you either have to be a cash buyer. Now, it doesn't mean the building isn't safe and that it's going to
Yeah.
crumble one day. It just means it's not meeting their standards of what they're looking for in order to, loan money into that building for someone to purchase.
Doesn't mean
Um,
it's not safe either, though. Right.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. So we're starting to see a little bit of that where a little bit it's a challenge of how does a buyer then find financing? Maybe you have to go to a bank that's willing to do more of a risky portfolio loan, or, bank of mom and dad, and they offer that cash loan in order to do it. But you're starting to see some buildings that are doing more of the work that they need to do to deem them as warrantable, and that's going to be showing up in some sort of form of a special assessment, for that owner to take on.
And I always envision like in Vegas when they're like imploding a casino and it falls in on itself. It seems like we're too tight on these things. We can't do that. You'd
Yeah,
have to buy out everyone and then like evacuate 2 blocks and then pay for any damage you make. So, but that seems
100%.
like the answer, right? Like, hey, this thing's put in 100 years. Time to shift it to something else. Let's use this land, but I
Right.
don't know
I
how
mean, because
they.
that's the thing. Some of those older buildings, they can do the maintenance to kind of keep it up to standards, but they're going to continue to do that, right? The only solution to do away from continual deferred maintenance really would be to start from scratch, and that's definitely not happening because there's just so many hoops to jump through in order to do that.
So shifting gears a little, take me through like the personal side of what it's like being a realtor, right? Do you have to give up your weekends? You meet all these people, they're driving around in your car. Like what's the personal side like? The
You know
pros
what?
and the cons.
It's I always I have this conversation weekly when people call because they're like, "Hey, I want to do what you're doing." And a lot, especially on like social media, a lot of times you see the highlight reels of realtors and you don't see like what it took to get to that or the
Yeah,
behind
or
the
the
scenes,
$1 billion number you threw out. It sounds good.
right? And so what I tell people is it's like being a small business owner, right? I wake up every morning technically unemployed because I need to find new clients every single day. And if I don't have anyone to work for, I don't really have a job. And so it comes down to there's not really much the real estating part. I always tell people the gap between the knowledge I have and the knowledge someone, is just starting out, is pretty wide, but that can get caught up in a day, in a month, in a year, right? That's just like
Yeah.
studying, getting at bats, understanding the nuances. That part's easy. The real gap that's hard for someone to catch up to someone like me who's on chapter 20 of their career is all about relationships. So I always tell people, right, real estate, that's the stage that we get to stand on, the industry. What we get to perform daily while we're on the stage to our audience is cultivating, curating relationships. So it's really about the most successful real estate agents are the ones that are out there finding new relationships, establishing new relationships, and really curating those relationships that turn into these real estate opportunities and at bats to be able to see these pitches. And so, how I always equate it to someone new is, I always look at it as like, if I'm meeting you for the first time, Jeff, you look like an ATM machine to me. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is, and for the younger
Is
millennials
it
that
my
are
boxy face? What is it? Yeah.
I always have to preface to any younger millennial that like is listening to this, an ATM is like a brick and mortar Venmo, right?
Let me tell
They
you what an
still
ATM is.
exist. Yeah, exactly. We still go to these things, but and it's no different than a Venmo, right? Or Cash App. It's when you pull up to an ATM, you tap your phone, you punch in your PIN. You have two action items, right? You can either make a withdrawal or you can make a deposit.
Hmm.
And that's what being a real estate agent is on a day-to-day basis. It's finding these relationships. And when you identify someone isn't a jerk or an asshole, you want to establish a relationship, you have two choices. You can either make a withdrawal, right? Ask for business, ask for a referral, ask for an introduction, or you can make a deposit and provide value into that relationship. There's really no right or wrong, right? One of my favorite books by Adam Grant, Give and Take, it talks about the mindset of a giver and a taker. And one person's not better than the other, but it's understanding, just like if I make too many withdrawals from my bank account, eventually what'll happen is I get that flash on the screen, NSF,
You go
insufficient
debit. Yeah.
funds. Right. I don't have any money to take. And that happens in relationships. And we all have those people in our lives. How do we know those people, who they are? They're the people when they call, we hit straight to voicemail. And we are like,
Yeah.
what does this guy want now? What is he asking me for? I wonder why he's calling. So I always tell people to be successful in our industry, it's literally just making deposits of value into people. And when it comes time that you're ready to make a withdrawal, the beauty in this is not only do they allow you to make a withdrawal, they're giving you permission to make a withdrawal. They want to help you because they understand, well, what you want to take out of this relationship, you're the reason why we even have this capital in here because of all the deposits you've made. Of course, I want to return the favor and help out. That's really what my day-to-day looks like, is how do I find people where I can establish that they're a good person that I want to build a relationship with, and what can I do to make a deposit into this person's life to create value. And eventually what happens is when it comes time where I need to make a withdrawal, these people allow me to do that, and they make a deposit into me by introducing me to good people, to a client that maybe is looking to buy or sell real estate, or maybe it's them specific personally that's looking to buy or sell real estate. And that's ultimately what being a real estate agent is like, right? It goes beyond showing properties, finding these listings, right? Putting deals together. It's finding the people, establishing the relationship so that you can be that conduit to helping them with their real estate goals.
I could change everything you just said to any industry, right? Like
Yeah, that's sales.
life. That's true,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. Like, and we've all met those realtors and people in other business who, within 30 seconds of meeting them, they're asking you for a sale. You're like, hey, I just met you. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. Exactly.
The work, like the Sundays, I've always thought of like, I could never be a realtor. I want to go to my kid's game. I want to do this. I want
Yeah.
to see all that. Like, but that's a little bit of the trade off.
That's a little bit of trade-off. And part of it also, I'll tell you, is that's part of the come up. Like show properties, on the weekends. I don't really show properties in general. Part of it is because my focus is now just on the listing side, but
Mm,
also I always empower and coach agents to like be a business owner, right? When you are doing everything yourself, you're really an employee working for the
yeah.
business versus being that business owner. And that big
Work on the
aha,
business.
exactly. And where you hit that big aha in a career and you have the choice, it's a fork in the road to go the truly business owner entrepreneur side or just continue to just work for my business, is when you realize there's an inverse relationship between time and money. And sure,
Mm.
if I work on the weekends, show all these properties and all these buyers, in the evenings and the weekends when they're available, I'm going to make so much more money, but I have zero time for myself. I'm probably going to be the worst father and the worst husband to my wife if I do that. I don't want that. But then when you realize, okay, I can give up some money by hiring a showing agent that's going to take my clients out to physically show the properties, and I can still negotiate because that's what my strong suit is. I can hire an assistant to take care of my inbox and my calendars. I can hire all this leverage that take away from my bottom line, but now it gives me more time to go to my kids' games, to be a better husband to my wife. What I found is that the ROI in that investment ends up coming back tenfold. You still
Yeah.
don't really lose income because now you can take on more clients because you have more time to do this. You're more efficient and you can still have a personal life and take care of yourself and your family. It's just that a lot of agents, because it's such a hard industry to make it in, when they start to see that income coming in, they become
I
protective
go.
around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just like, "No, no, no, it's okay. Like, my kids won't remember me not being here because, they'll have this, nice lake house they can go to later in life." And you're just like,
Ye-
I always
No.
try and tell them, like, trust me, they will remember. You want to be, and you will remember that you weren't there. You want to be able to be there, and paying someone 50 grand a year to leverage and getting back that time, trust me, you're not going to miss out on that income and you're going to see a return on that investment.
Yeah, and that's like the plot of every rom-com, like the guy who takes all that for granted and gives up the
Yes.
time for the money and like it never works out. But you
Yeah.
like as you were saying all that, I was thinking of AI, right? Who now is kind of helping that instead of hiring these two people,
Yeah.
maybe use some AI. So what has that done to your business in particular and just overall? I think Zillow, right, launched something and they were buying houses based on its model that went terribly wrong.
Yes.
So
That
just
that did not work out for them.
yeah. So what have you seen there? Is it helping you? What do you see in the future for AI in real estate?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, AI is how we've implemented it into our business. It has helped with our profitability because it's taken workload off of our operations and admin team that's allowed them to focus elsewhere that's brought in more revenue. We're still not at the place yet where I see it where it's going to replace an actual human role where I can say like, wow, I can get rid of this person's salary and I can now just have
Yeah.
AI fully do that. We could get to that point one day. But right now, it's a tool that makes us work more efficiently, more effectively, and more profitably. And I really like that. I think the opportunity for our industry, the real estate space where AI can really change is from a consumer standpoint. Right now, we're one of the few industries where, you know, how you search for a home is still the same way it's been forever. What's your price? What's your zip code or location you want to be? How
Yeah.
many bedrooms and how many bathrooms? It's archaic in my opinion because right now if we log into our Amazon accounts, our Netflix accounts, even like our social media, our homepages look different
Yeah,
because
there's an algo running them.
yeah, exactly. Predictive analytics is taking over and it knows what to recommend to you. I think the future of real estate and the company to get to do this is going to really win is change that consumer experience where you log into my website or Zillow or whatever, and now the algorithm will start to tell you what properties you will like because they should be able to scan the data of, wow, look, based on your, 12-month Grubhub order history, you're ordering a lot from Cheval. Maybe you should be living in the Fulton market, right?
Yeah.
Based on where your Ubers are coming from and spending, time from work or socially, maybe you should be living here. There's so
I
much
love
data
that. You could
out
even have
there.
like a little counter that's like, hey, if you lived here, you'd save $812 a year on Ubers.
100%. I really think that the home search is so broken, and I get it, right? It's got to be at the end of the day, it's got to be anchored by price point and bedroom count. But I think that can be layered on after the fact once someone, an algorithm, predictive analytics tell you like, I think your ideal neighborhood is, Wicker Park because
Yeah.
of what your personal life data shows you, right?
I
So
love it. It's like you've ordered 7 million paper towel rolls. You need a lot of storage space. Like, what's wrong
exactly,
with you? Yeah.
exactly. You have corporate Costco membership. You need a pantry, right?
But like part of home buying is such an emotional, it's like the biggest emotional financial decision too, right? So it's somewhat yes, but then it's like, well, if I'm just data, or maybe do you have customers that are just database? They're like, I don't care. I don't need to see the pretty house and have that warm fuzzy feeling. I just want this price and this number of rooms
Yeah, I
versus
mean, it is 100% still very much so, an emotional a piece of it. So that's why it's like when people say, and a lot of it I think is just like clickbait and rage bait. I guess as my 14-year-old daughter would say, of articles saying like, "Oh, AI will replace the realtor one day," because a machine can negotiate and do all this stuff. I'm just like, there's just so much emotional navigating nuances to a deal,
yeah.
and also a human element that maybe some of the communication can be replaced via AI, but a lot of it still has to be in person, and you know uh conversations, reading people emotionally on a situation that I just don't see that ever fully taking fruition.
And it seems like you've already survived the hardest parts, right? Like 20 years ago, when did we start being able to search online and see all the pictures? And so it
Yeah,
seemed like to me, it was like, oh, everyone's going to be able to do this online. Like real estate commissions are going to come way down. You won't need realtors. I just
right.
find the exact place I want and then use them for the last mile, so to speak.
There was
Um,
a time when the MLS went from physical paper copy books where you literally like you didn't know until Monday morning what new listings were because they were printed to being digital online, and the entire real estate world thought the sky was falling. We're going, there goes real estate. Like it's going online and the MLS is going to be digital. Like what? And everything's worked out. Right. So, I just think that a lot of people, especially in my industry, is just they don't like change and they
yeah.
fear it.
And it's weird. My buddy in Palm Beach was talking about that place has gone crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And he's like, and we have these friends from high school that couldn't tie their shoes, and now they're making like tens of millions of dollars selling real estate down there. So we were both yelling at that a little bit. But he's like, and the crazy part is the homes have increased 10x, but the commission hasn't decreased 10x. If that, right? It's come down to maybe a hair, and maybe
Right.
down there at like $100 million sale or 50 million, it's quite a bit less. But that's a good like lever for you guys on the other side, right? As a
Right.
businessman, like, hey, the prices go up and we stay the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I had one more thing with the national piece there you were going to tell me about because you were on the board of the National Association or something like
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Still
Um,
current board of director.
there you go.
Yeah.
So there was a big class action suit. What was happening with all that, and how did that
Yeah.
shake out?
Oh yeah, that was another sky is falling moment in our industry. Ultimately there's a class action lawsuit of home sellers who felt that the way that the listing agreement used to work was, Jeff, like let's say I'm pitching to sell your home, and how we would pitch and explain the commission structure was that, hey, it's commission's going to be 6%. Of that 6%, though, I'm going to be paying 3% to the buyer's
Mm,
agent that brings a buyer, right?
yeah,
But I'm in control as the listing agent of receiving that full 6%. And it's on me now to cooperate and give the other 3% to the buy side. Well, I'm sure there were a lot of people that weren't fully explaining it, that way. And a bunch of sellers felt like, hey, one, like, this is really confusing. Like, you told me that
that
you're going
your
to give
commission was only
half,
3%. Yeah,
right? But now you're keeping like 5% of it. Like, what's going on? And then the other part was the mindset was, hey, why as a home seller, why am I paying the buyer's agent to bring a buyer here, right?
yeah,
So, what happened from that, they had settled that lawsuit, and part of the settlement, outside of the monetary financial side of it was changing rules around that. And so, or business practice, as they say. And so now we're in this world where they have separated the commission. So now when I'm speaking with you, Jeff, our listing agreement now, we're just talking about how much you're going to compensate me for my professional fees, like, hey, 3% is what, you're paying for. Now the buyer side, they have their own agreement, a buyer broker agreement, which by the way is nothing new. That's been around forever, right?
ever. Yeah.
We've always practiced that on our team. But a lot of people didn't because some agents are just scared to talk about how they make a living, which,
Mm,
I'm like, you're in sales. I don't understand that. That's not a taboo subject, right? You
right.
offer a service, you get compensated for service. So now that's become in state of Illinois. I was the president last year of the Illinois Realtors, which we're, I think, like the fifth largest association in the country, 55,000 members. And what we help lobby to do is change and make it an official license law rule in Illinois where you have to have a buyer broker agreement, right? Because it's more
Right.
transparent for the client. So you have this agreement now where the buyer's agent has with the buyer saying, like, hey, we're going to ask the seller to cover my professional fees, but if they don't, you're on the hook for it.
Right.
And, everyone was like, this is a big deal because now this
Yeah, that'll
changes
drive those to
things.
zero, basically. Yeah.
Right. And, also part of the other rules change was that, in the past in the MLS, it would state and showcase how much the buyer agent commission was that was being offered. And so they said, we got to take that away too, because that could create bias. Because if now a seller's only willing to offer a little bit, it's going to filter, a realtor will filter and not want to show that property, right?
Right.
So that went away and they thought the sky was falling. Well, fast forward now, it's been a couple of years that this has been in practice. And, guess what? Eh, Everything is pretty much the same as far as how things have been done. I think it's even better now, and I'm one of the few that is happy about how the settlement because it does create a lot more transparency for the consumer, and I think that's very important. And it creates more of a fiduciary, and it's very clear, like, hey, I represent you on the buy side. This is my professional fees that you compensate me for. Listing side, this is my fees. This is the value I bring, and there's no confusion around it. And so
Yeah.
I think ultimately it's become a good thing. I think what the attorney that represented, these angry sellers in this class action lawsuit thought that this was going to eliminate the need for commissions. Now you see, no one's going to see value in the realtor. Obviously, that guy was wrong because
Hmm.
we have not seen any change. We haven't seen any devalue of professional fees of what consumers want to pay. If anything, it's validated that consumers realize this is the largest physical asset that one purchases in their lives, and they want to hire a professional to represent them and advise them in this transaction.
And now you made me think of blockchain, which we'll be very quick on. But where do you see that all happening? Of like, hey, your title is on the chain, and we can cut out title people, and that will bring costs down to transfers and stuff.
I am such a big proponent of blockchain, and I think that it's so needed in the space because it keeps. I mean, yeah, ultimately, like there's really no need for title insurance after that because
Yeah,
it's a clear and free title.
right.
The
Everyone can
cha-
see it on the chain.
yeah, it's been talked about for so long, and the reason why it's not been adopted, there's just too many hands in the pod when it
Mm,
comes to the workflow because it's the title has to be if the mortgage has to be able to also underwriting has to be in sync and accepting of blockchain technology in order for the title to be accepted that way as well. On the real estate side, I think that we're the easiest side to accept that. Then you have the nuance of Illinois being an attorney state. So real
yeah.
estate transactions have an attorney involved. So now the attorneys, the way they make money is through the title insurance policy, right? So how does that work? So I think there's just too many cooks in the kitchen right now from a policy standpoint that doesn't allow that to happen. And also a capability uh part, but also when I hear that, I think about, 2 days ago, I ordered a sandwich and a little Coco
Robot
pulled
brought
up,
it.
a robot brought
Yeah,
it to me. If they can figure that out, I'm pretty sure we can figure out ways to, incorporate blockchain into the real
yeah.
estate
And
transaction.
I live right here at Hamlin Park, and they
Yeah.
bought a AI robot that chalks all the fields for the baseball game.
You're
So one of the
kidding
dads
me.
is like, we used to have to wake up an hour ahead and do all this chalk and take us an hour. Now this thing does all four fields in 15 minutes. So,
That's incredible.
right. I'm like, great, great use case. All right, we're going to get on to some fun stuff. Any last real estate thoughts before we talk
No,
fine
no,
dining?
no, I'm real estated out.
I'm real estated out. All right, you're a foodie, as you alluded to in your first answer. Why Chicago? We've compared burger lists, so I'm going to have you do 4 Mount Rushmores.
Oh
I think you're up
gosh.
for it. But yeah, so I stole this from Bill Simmons, not Ben Simmons. Bill
Yes.
Simmons. Instead of picking the best, right? He says Mount Rushmore. So you have
Yes.
latitude. You can do 4 instead of 1. So we'll start easy. Burgers, Chicago burger joint, Mount Rushmore.
Okay. So I have to preface here because I think the most important category for me when I'm looking at burgers
Yes.
is cost. Because
Mm,
right now, people will throw out Armitage Ale House,
yeah.
which is all part of, the Hog Cell with Jean Cheval, right? And everyone loves that burger, which I think is not really that great anymore. But yeah, sure. If you're using Wagyu or A5 meat and you're using the best ingredients, a $40 burger
It's pretty damn
better
good.
tastes freaking good. So when
Yeah.
someone says, "Oh, that's Armitage Ale House burger is the best," I'm like, yeah, for $35, it better be. I don't count that, right? I think price is a big piece, affordability. So I say that because for 100% sure on the Mount Rushmore burgers has to be Red Hot Ranch because
Which is right up the street from me here.
yes,
Ashland and Barry. Yeah.
listen, a double cheeseburger and you get fresh cut fries for $8 and it's a great burger. It's more of that In-N-Out style. I think it's one of my favorites. It's one of my ones I always recommend to people. So
You told me, and I still haven't been, even though I
you
drive by
gotta
it
go. You gotta
20
go.
times a week. All right.
And I'll tell you,
Gone.
the great fried shrimp too.
Mm,
So
all
Red
right.
Hot Ranch is on there. My personal favorite tasting burger in the entire city is a Mott Street burger. Okay. Have you had Mott Street's burger?
Yes, we talked about that one. Yeah,
Yes,
very good.
it's different. It's definitely got a little bit more of that umami to it. That's definitely on my Mount Rushmore of burgers. I will say, I think the best smash burger in the city of Chicago is Levitt Street Inn. Their smash burger
It's like right
is
west of the highway over
yes,
there.
yep.
Yeah, yeah. I've
And
had
they
that
just
as
they
well.
just
Yeah.
they just like redid the outdoor space too. That they are on my Mount Rushmore.
No.
And my fourth, in speaking of in this world where everything is a smash burger now, it is refreshing to just get a nice thick pub style burger. And I think the best thick pub style burger, legendary spot, Rootstock. Have you had Rootstock's
I've not
burger?
been to Rootstock. No.
Okay,
All right,
you
go.
you have to
Where
go
is
to
that?
Rootstock. It's Humble Park ish,
Okay.
and they have just an incredible thick, juicy burger. I think it's definitely a short rib chuck blend, and it's definitely like a 70-30. So you got a decent amount of fat in there that brings that juiciness. That burger is phenomenal. I will tell you, you didn't ask for it, but you know,
Uh,
just like, Trump wants to be the fifth
the
president,
fifth?
remember?
Yeah,
Yeah. If there was a fifth burger, I will say they're relatively new. And it's a pop, not, I don't want to say a pop up, but they're inside of, have you ever been to the Long Room? It's a bar.
yeah, yeah,
It's next to Popeyes on Irving Park in like Ashland. In there, they have
yeah.
a kitchen, and the burger spot that's in there is called Cash's Kitchen.
Okay.
Holy crap. This burger is phenomenal. And it is definitely the guy Travis who's owns it and is the chef. He has an extensive like culinary background. He got burnt out of just the bureaucracy and just the whole fine dining world and just said, I just want to make burgers. And he
Yeah,
just
leave
did
me
it,
alone. Yeah.
bet on himself, and this burger is like, it's incredible what he
You
what he does.
you ever thought of doing like a Dave Portnoy style, going around
You
doing
know
little?
what?
You'd
I'm
be
I'm
great at it. Yeah.
I am anti-rating food because
Okay.
it's such
Yeah.
a subjective thing.
Personal. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Like, like my favorite sandwich of all time is a McDonald's Filet-O-Fish. Some people gag
There you
at
go.
that. I think it's a
Yeah.
perfect 10. That is literally like the pinnacle of sandwiches for me. So, that's why rating food I think is kind of
Just do it
silly.
and turn off the comments. You'll be fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right. Next, dive bars. Mount Rushmore of dive bars.
Man, I will say, okay. It's like it's funny because like now I feel like the hipsters thing is to make your bar feel like a dive bar, but it's like also like
Yeah.
fancy cocktails now. But I'll tell you, and it's going to be, there's a little bit of food connection to it. Okay. So my first favorite dive bar is Best Intentions. Have you been there? Yeah. I
Yes.
mean, once again,
Fantastic.
because they
But
have
they
an
have
incredible burger.
cocktails and cool
But
food.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but the drinks are really great there. I like Best Intentions a lot.
They had some homemade like trail mix in this little bag that I was just like, what is this?
Right?
It was so good. Yeah. I was like,
It's
who does this?
incredible.
Yeah.
I love Best Intentions. There's an awesome bar in Bridgeport called Electric Funeral. That
Love the name.
is,
Never been.
oh my gosh, it's so divey, but also it's like a classy divey. It's great. It's a great spot. It's just got, cast of characters, phenomenal drinks and cocktails. I really like that. I think creepy favorite dive bar is L&L Tavern. And I say it's creepy because that's
L&L.
where John Wayne Gacy and Jeffrey Dahmer
Oh
used to
boy.
hang out at, and
Yeah.
they live by that. But L&L Tavern is just straight up like dark. Like
Where's
I
that?
always
Not. It's like I'm
it
thinking of a
is
Delilah's, but no.
no, it's in Lakeview on Clark and just north of Belmont,
Yeah.
L&L
Okay.
Tavern. I tell friends, if you ever go there and you run into me and I'm by myself, like, call someone. I need help, right? That's a place where I should not be hanging out by
By yourself.
myself. But L&L's a really good one. And then, once again, I don't know if I would call this a dive bar, but small bar.
Yeah.
It's been around forever, but they just have they're under new ownership now for the last, like, I don't know how many years. But I love small bar, and part of it also is because I love the cheeseburger that they serve out there. Patty
Yeah.
Pleaser
The onion
is out
burger.
there. Yes.
Yeah. I've had,
And
but
and
I
they
also, we had like 5 vodka drinks that we ordered there, and it was still, I think they're full priced, but small. So
yeah,
I was like,
they're the
wait,
small
these are
ones. Yeah.
small drinks. Why is the bill so big? Like, oh, don't worry about it. Uh,
Exactly.
Love it. We're running out of time. So I'm going to, last one, open, dealer's choice, your Mount Rushmore of places to go. I won't even say restaurant, bar, places to go in Chicago.
Wow. Places to go. Well, I'll tell you what, this one might sound cliche, but summertime, there's no better place on earth than Wrigley Field.
Amen.
And whether, yeah, there you go.
Go
Whether
Cubs.
I'm still a little bitter that the Sox beat them, but
Yeah.
whether they're good or bad, it's just an incredible environment to go catch a game, even to see a concert there. So I'll say that.
And what was that Weird View sidebar, like that became such a high luxury real estate market right around Wrigleyville? Like
Yeah.
back in the day, like why would you want to live next to the
Oh
stadium
my
and the
gosh.
drunks and all that?
Yeah, I remember my dad, because they had the dry cleaners on Broadway and Cornelia, and my dad would tell me, like, especially in the '80s, he's like, "There's only two reasons why you'd be on the corner of Clark and Addison. It'd be either because you're going to the Cubs game or you're trying to buy crack." It was just a shanty little neighborhood, and now it's
So if
like,
I see you there and you're not going to a Cubs game, you're in
yeah,
trouble. Yeah.
exactly,
That was his
exactly.
message.
That was his message. Don't be there without Cubs tickets. Um, One of my other favorite things, I'll do this by season. In the wintertime, during the holidays, going to the Museum of Science of Industry, they do this like Christmas trees from around the world exhibit every
Yeah.
year.
For like
It's
100 years they've done it. Yeah.
yeah. And some of the trees are cheesy, how they're like, decorated. That's the most like stereotypical stuff from the country, but it's just a
Yeah.
cool thing. I think part of me, as a kid, I would go there to see like the South Korea tree. And so, there's still nostalgia in it. I still do it with my family. So I still love doing that. I always recommend people do that. Springtime, going to Jackson Park and seeing the cherry blossoms. A lot of people don't realize
Mm.
that we have a lot of cherry blossoms, and you have like a 7-day window to do it. But if you can catch it, I think it's super beautiful to do.
I was
And,
just with a guy at a golf tournament. We were having a theological, philosophical debate of if God had it to do over again, he would have made things like cherry blossoms bloom for like maybe 4 months,
right,
right? Like 7 days is too short. Like all these,
right.
especially in Chicago, like, come on, stretch it out.
I feel the same way about tulips. I'm like,
Yeah.
they come up and then they go, and you're just like, man,
Yeah.
why couldn't these be just around longer?
His count, this guy's counter was if it went away, didn't go away as quickly, we wouldn't appreciate it as much.
Yeah,
So
that's
maybe.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
I like that mindset. And the last piece I'll add in, I feel like these are all touristy things to do, but this is why I love the city. Like, these are things that I do still. Once a year, we'll go on an architectural boat tour. And I think
Yeah.
it's one of the greatest ways to see the city. It's just a great time to be out and about. And I always learn something new that I didn't know. And I think it's a fun thing to do. So I'd say those 4 things are my go-tos.
But I used to race sailboats, and I used to work like cleaning the boat in Montrose Harbor down there. Not Montrose, on down south by McCormick Place, whatever that
Oh,
harbor's
yeah,
called.
yeah.
So one of the boats, where it must have been an extended tour, and they would come into there, and the tour guide would be like, "This is a America's Cup boat. It won the America's." I'm like, "No, none of that's true."
That's hilarious.
So
And I'm
be
the
careful.
one that goes back like, did you know the America Cup's like
Yeah, they have one of the boats right over
here?
Another good hack, you can take the water taxi from the aquarium to Navy Pier. It goes out in the lake there. You get basically a $7 boat charter. See the skyline from that angle is always one I like to give people.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And another hack we'll throw out here, then we're going to go to the aquarium at night. Don't get arrested, or don't tell them you got it from the podcast every day. You go there at night, you walk around the back, and you can go right up to the window, right? There's a sidewalk there. You have to climb through some bushes, but you're right up in the window, and the dolphins are just playing in there. There's no fans. There's no, they're not jumping through stuff, but they're pushing balls around, and they're doing their thing. Super cool.
That's a pro tip. You know what's funny is that you say that because when I'm like from the other side, like coming from Soldier Field, you always see that ledge that hugs that glass, and I always wonder, like, there's got to be a way to get there.
Maybe not after a Bears game because the cops will be on alert.
That's true. Okay, I like that.
Awesome, Tommy. We'll leave it there. We'll put, for all you listeners who want to buy I guess they'd be making a deposit with you. You're going to withdraw.
They would be,
we'll put your info down in the show notes, but thanks again.
That. Thanks for
having me.
Look
forward to seeing you shortly, so hopefully on a boat or at a Cubs game. We'll see.
Or we got to grab a burger.
Done.
There you go.
I think I'm going to choose Root Stack. Let's go to Root Stack.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm down.
Root Stack. I'll be a Root Stack. You'll be a Root Stack. Awesome. Thanks, Tommy.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay, that's it for the podcast. Thanks to Tommy for coming on. Thanks to Jeff Berger for producing. Thanks to RCM for sponsoring. We'll be coming back with some more Chicago Month next week, talking to two folks from one of Chicago's famed exchanges, the SIBO. We'll see you then. Peace.
You've been listening to The Derivative. Links from this episode will be in the episode description of this channel. Follow us on Twitter at RCMAlts and visit our website to read our blog or subscribe to our newsletter at rcmalts.com. If you liked our show, introduce a friend and show them how to subscribe. And be sure to leave comments. We'd love to hear from you. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as legal, business, investment, or tax advice. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinions and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of RCM Alternatives, their affiliates, or companies featured. Due to industry regulations, participants on this podcast are instructed not to make specific trade recommendations nor reference past or potential profits, and listeners are reminded that managed futures, commodity trading, and other alternative investments are complex and carry a risk of substantial losses. As such, they are not suitable for all investors.